Hi, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. Today we're going to do another Lessons from Stonemont about how family is your first team. Now, we had a couple of lessons before. we found out that Jim Wyatt, who is our main character, was caught up in a lights out, grid down situation up 25-30 miles from home. Was able to score a $40 mountain bike, and now he's headed home, trying to get home. So he's pedaling along, huffing and puffing and cussing himself for getting out of shape. And there's a couple of lessons that we're going to skip over that are going to be in the book, Lessons from Stonemont, but we're going to skip over those for now because they take a lot more discussion really than we're going to do in these videos. So he gets out there and he's about beat to death after being on a $40 mountain bike and out of shape. He finally gets home, and his wife and kids come out the kitchen door, and the first thing that his 4-year-old son says is, "Daddy, the TV doesn't work." And then the 9-year-old comes up and says, I've got LED lamps out and lanterns up in case the lights don't come back on." And of course he says, "Good job, buddy. We sure might need them." So we're still in the reversion. We're just in the last part of the first chapter of the reversion. I'm not very good at this, I know. That's the book, The Reversion, and it is available on Amazon. It's the first of the series. The second is The Revival, and the third will be coming out here in a couple of months, The Renewal. Anyway, so we're at the end of the first chapter of The Revival. The fact that his 9-year-old son, and this is a reflection of, my 9-year-old, my son, when he was 9 years old, and there were emergencies, or tornadoes or bad weather, whatever like that, he was on the ball whether I was home or not. I heard he had lanterns ready, he had lights ready, he had emergency radios ready, he had the door open to the basement. He was on the ball and in charge, and you can imagine, I was very proud of him, and so was my wife. But this is the good lesson about your family is your first team. In an emergency situation, your team does all have to be on board. There's nothing worse than people who you need to count on, who should be relying on each other, and understanding that there is a sequence of authority or a sequence of responsibility and sequence of events. Nothing worse than having them going all over different directions, nobody knowing what to do or what's going on, and nobody listening, or nobody taking charge either. But a family is the first team. It's the bedrock not just of a society or a civilization, but the bedrock of handling everything that happens within the sphere of that family. So people have, so in this case, we have that lesson. The 4-year-old, of course, what's most important to him is that the TV isn't working, because that's his level of understanding. He doesn't yet realize his life's going to be a lot better without it, but right now it's a major problem for him. The 9-year-old has gone beyond that, and he understands kind of what's going on, and he has stepped in and done what he should be doing at the time. So people have asked me, how do you get a family on board? Well, I think that first off, there's something to consider. Getting a family on board doesn't mean getting your family to be a 24/7 preparedness group that are always running around in camo and tactical gear and talking about nothing but storing beans and rice and zeroing their rifles and things like that. It should not consume a family. It should be like many other important aspects of life, a part of it, a part that people have been introduced to, begin to understand at levels that are appropriate for their age, and then can participate in when the time is right. Years ago, when I first kind of started thinking that I would come more into the public arena here, I had watched a couple of YouTube videos way back. This has probably been, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. And I had my son watch it. I'm not sure if I had my oldest son. I'm not sure if I had the other two watch it or not. But anyway, I showed him a couple of videos, and of course they watched a lot of YouTube videos about things. And I told him, I said, more kids ought to be aware of this stuff, and more people ought to teach their kids about this stuff. And of course they were around me all the time, and so they got it peripherally. It wasn't like they had to, we had to sit down and instruct and say, here's the deal on this and do this. And you just, it's kind of like how you learn to talk, right? Through osmosis, being around it, it seeps into you. Well, anyway, I showed him a couple of these things. One day I was around the house, and my oldest son came in and said, "Daddy, come into the family room. We have something to show you." And so I did, and I walked into the family room, and they had brought the piano bench into the family room, and all three of them, and I think at this time it was like 9 years old or 8 or something, and 4 and 3, and they said, "Stand right here," and they got behind the piano bench, and they started this Prepper Kids video, and they just, it was the cutest thing you'd ever seen. And to me, it wasn't just cute, it was impressive. I was amazed at how they came out. Excuse me. And they kind of put together this little script of their own on what preparedness is and how people ought to be prepared and all this stuff. And I was so impressed with it. I tried to get them. I said, you guys ought to do a YouTube channel on this, because I think a lot of people would be interested in it, seeing kids that are involved and have an understanding about this, and get other kids involved in it. And they kind of, you know how it is when Dad says something, they go, yeah, we don't know if we want to do that. But anyway, at one point we did, and we were down where we vacation a lot, down at Table Rock Lake in southern Missouri, and we were down at Big Cedar, where we stay a lot. And so I got them together and got them out there and shot a little video of what they called Prepper Kids. And I think if we can find it, I'm going to ask my son if we can find it. I'm going to put, and they decided not to go on with it. They didn't want to do that. They didn't want to be on camera or anything like that. But if we can find it, I'm going to ask him to put the link down below here in the information part below my books and whatever it is. And if you want to check it, you ought to check it. It's the cutest thing you've ever seen. But it's indicative of really how you want to kind of approach developing this understanding and this teamwork within the family. Everybody has their part to play. Not everybody has to be gung-ho, do this all the time, but they simply have to have an understanding of the basic situation and what can happen and what, so that it's not a big surprise, and so you're not trying to educate people during an emergency of what's going on and what needs to be done. So it's just a matter of kind of including it as an underlying one of the threads of the fabric of your life, to where the kids are kind of become a part of it, and each one of them, as they get older, can become more and more a part of it. Until now, all of my kids are very, very good. My oldest son is just a real important part of it. It's not by any means his major interest, but when called upon, he can do what he needs to do, and that's the important thing. So people have asked me, how would you get your family involved? And here I want to talk about getting a spouse involved is totally different, and I would say it's not so important to get them involved as it is to get them to understand it, because involvement may not be for them, and it may not be necessary. this daily involvement, but an understanding is, so that when the time comes, if the time comes, everybody can jump on board and what they need to be doing. But with kids, I suggest, make it fun. Kids love to learn things, and they love to do new things, and they love challenges. And you tell a kid to go out and pick up all the sticks in the backyard, and they're going to grumble. They don't want to do it. But if you say something like, "I wonder who can get the most sticks over in their own pile," well, man, it's not going to be long to where there's no sticks in your yard, because they all want to compete and they all want to do it, and now you've made it interesting to them. So that's how I suggest you do this. But also, the world around us gives us perfect opportunities. One going on right now would be Venezuela. I know a lot of people are talking about Venezuela, and I'm not going to get deeply into that. But if you're watching TV and the kids are in the room, just kind of draw their attention to it, and kind of explain, all those poor people, they don't have any electricity, and they're running out of food, and they don't have any clean water, and all this. And instead of making it a test, just kind of make it a question. What do you think they should do? And you'll be amazed at the answers that these kids will start coming up with, because they'll feel that they're a part of the process, like this is kind of a fun little test, and they'll come up with ideas. And more important than what their ideas are is the fact that they are now being mentally and intellectually engaged in the situation. And as you have opportunities like that come up, if you're taking a day trip, say, guys, what should we throw in the car just in case, just in case something happens? And they'll, that shotgun sound you heard was just my phone, a buddy calling me or sending me a text. So, and when he hears that on this tape, he'll laugh. So just kind of make it a daily part. When things come up, say, I wonder what they should do. And you'll be amazed how kids will get in. They'll start to get involved and on board without even realizing it. So anyway, the most important thing out of this is that your family, if you're fortunate to have one, and I hope you do, if you don't, then your immediate circle of friends, your family is your first team. They're the ones that you should always be there for. They're the ones that will always be there for you. They're the ones to concentrate on most in every situation, and especially an emergency or catastrophic situation. So include them. Make sure that you include them, and allow them to progress and become a part of it at the rate and to the extent that is comfortable and for them, and that they want to, and you'll see a lot of growth, and then they'll be an important part of responding to whatever emergency might come along. So with that, I'll let you go and remind you that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.